What's going on, everyone? It's Shaun here from Space Creators. Now, what I wanted to do was start doing a mini series on YouTube, and also this is going on to Spotify and our podcast as well. So, what I intend to do is basically just jump on for the best part of 20 minutes every other day, every other week, and just discuss some of the issues that tradespeople find, clients find, and then also just to discuss the industry as a whole because it's ever evolving. There's so much going on all the time. And to start off with today, what I want to sort of touch on is mistakes and issues on jobs. Now, every single tradesman I know, whether you're a carpenter, a tiler, plasterer, roofer, bricklayer, you name it, there's always been some form of an issue on a job. Whether it's your fault, whether it's someone else's fault, there's always something. You can never ever seem to get away from it. These things do happen. We try as best as we can to try and avoid getting into that sticky situation. And inevitably, sometimes, there's so many different factors that could play a part in something that we want to complete. So, discussing today, we're going to touch on mistakes, accidents happen. When I say mistakes, I don't mean things like health and safety assessments and things like that. We're not even going to go into that ballpark because there is a lot to touch on in there. But I think as tradesmen, we try our hardest to make sure that every bit of detail is always covered, and we put so much immense pressure on ourselves to make things right because the clients pay for this certain part of the work. It's their hard-earned cash that we want to, you know, do everything to the best of our ability. And inevitably, sometimes we're going to find ourselves stuck in a situation that we can't seem to get out of. And it could be even something down to like the tiles. There was a time a good couple of years ago where I was doing some subway tiles for a client, and they said to me towards the end of laying these tiles, "Oh, are we okay to go for black grout instead of white?" Anyone who does tiling or has done tiling knows having black grout on subway tiles are a nightmare. They are the worst things to do. I'll do it, quite happily do it. It's going to take me a little bit longer. They understood, not a problem. Anyway, I went to go do these tiles, and lo and behold, it got to about, Christ, when was it? Must have been about 8 o'clock at night, and I was still rubbing these tiles down because I was like, these basic grout clouds were like just forming everywhere, and I was like, this is torture. The seal and everything's all set. It's absolutely fine. But I was just getting these like mist coats on everything, and I was like, right, it could be the sponge, so I got a new sponge. It could be, down to the actual grout itself. So I checked on there, and I was like, it says it's, it would have been set by now. I prepped the tiles, right? I prepped everything. Everything was all good to go, absolutely fine. And he got to, like I said, 8:30, 9, and it still weren't happening. So I did what anyone in my situation would do. All the merchants were closed. The client wasn't there. And it was a Friday night, and I didn't have any plans the next day, didn't have any commitments. So I was like, right, I need to get this done. So I took my sock off because it's obviously most of our work socks are very like microfiber type material, so it's very good to like clean stains and stuff off. Took my sock off, put my boot back on, and I started to basically rub down these tiles dry, and it works an absolute treat. Now, if I was to just basically wash these tiles down, go over it with a very dry cloth after, and I left it, and then the client came back the next day, they probably would have sat there and absolutely gone mad because there was just black grout everywhere, and I was like, this shit gets stuck in your hands, in your hair. At one point, it was on my shoes, like, and I was like, "How is this even happening?" And I mean, like underneath my shoes, even though the grout didn't go on the ground, it's just that black water residue that you get after. But the moral of the story basically is that if I was to leave that, then I would have had to go back and basically like dry it down, rub it down again, wipe it off, and it would have been fine. It would have caused no damage to the job, and it would have been great. The client wouldn't have even known. not that there was anything wrong with what we did. It was just the fact that it just looked like shit straight after, and that was hard for me to just walk away from. And there's been numerous occasions and like many times where we've done jobs and I've sat there and I thought to myself, right, this isn't going how I wanted it to. How can I make this better? So I've done just like anyone else would. Um, Phoned up a few people, spoke to a few mentors, a few different groups, even spoke to manufacturers in the past. And I said to them, what the hell's going on? Like, I can't seem to get this right, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying my hardest. I've done these before, and I've never had an issue, but all of a sudden I'm getting these issues. And I spoke to the manufacturer about it, and it wasn't like a commercial manufacturer. It was very much like an independent wholesaler. And me and him were having like a chat for like 30 minutes. I only phoned him up to ask him what the hell's going on with these tolls, but he said to me something that stuck so hard, and it still sticks today. He went, "You can only do the best that you can do with what you've got." And I was like, "Okay, you're not a prophet. Thanks for the advice, but my clients aren't going to think that." So the relationships that I try and sort of build with clients now is the understanding that, number one, I'm only as good as I can be. Number two, there's going to be issues and there's going to be potential like failures or flaws on a job, but they're not going to be catastrophic to a point where you've got to rebuild like an entire roof or anything like that. That shit's like, yeah. If I was ever in that situation, I would cry, just cry. But I mean, like the tedious little things, like when you're cutting in skirting board and the angles just don't meet up, and you just sat there like, what the fuck is going on? Coving is a big one. I hate coving. I can never ever get the right angles, never, because a room is never square. And trying to shape it is a bloody nightmare. I love swan neck coving, and like the old Victorian style where it sort of goes up and then goes quite far across on the ceiling. I love that. And I'd probably fit it in my own house, but I wouldn't go out and go and say, "Yeah, I can fit this for you, not a problem," because I'd just mess it up. Do no ends of cuts and things like that. But again, there's things that I'm learning, even on my journey, because this is a journey. Although I run a business, it is my journey of learning new things. Knowing that carpenters say you need to let skirting board and doors and other carpentry knickknacks. It all needs to acclimatise to the house. So most people when they get a door, they'll leave it in the packaging until the day they come to fit. It is the worst thing to do. Uh, and that's why you'll always see like air holes, or on a door on the packaging, you will always see not moisture, but like a residue on the inside. And it didn't click till someone said to me, "It's like, yeah, you need to take it out because basically, wood will shrink and it will expand. So when you come to hang the door, you're gonna have shadow gaps. You're gonna have bits where the door's basically like jamming or sticking, and you got to go and plane it back down, and no ends of issues." And again, it goes back to the same old thing. We can only do so much every single day to make things better. And as long as we're true to ourselves, we don't try and fuck with it and say, "Yeah, I can go and do an EPDM roof, even though I've never been trained on doing it." It's like going to go fix a car. If a mechanic said to me, "No, I've never worked on a car before, this is my first," I'd be like, "Fuck that. Stay away from my car." Or work on it with someone who knows what they're doing and you can gain in knowledge. Because you only need to do something a couple of times to understand how it works and how to do it, and then it's down to you to practice that technique or practice that skill and get better at it. And it's the only way that we can do that. And the only way to do that really is to jump on the tools and actually do it. But yeah, I mean, there's a majority of different factors that play into mistakes on jobs, and a few different issues that we come across. And for people like myself, who have subcontractors and employees and stuff like that, and rely on other trades sometimes to help us out and stuff, if they've made a mistake and it is a genuine mistake, they've looked at it, they've tried the hardest and they can't seem to get it just right, I will never ever say to them, "Right, I'm going to get someone else in now to do this." I'll fucking sit there and I'll work with them to get it right. Because, and I've done it in the past with one of the lads who did quite a lot of plastering with us. he was really struggling with the technique to plastering, and I don't mean the technique. Sorry, the more the process. You know, when to do it, when to hit it, when to put the second coat on. So I wrote each step down, and this was a job we were on in Leamington Spa on the extension on Ashford Road, and there was a wall that basically I knew was going to be tiled, and I knew that I'd have to reskim it anyway. But we didn't charge the client like for the plaster; they weren't there. It was just me and this other lad. You know, about 2, 3 o'clock, and we were like, right, well, it's a Friday, we finished. He said to me, right, I've got nothing to do tonight or tomorrow. I was like, do you know what? Fuck it, we're going to actually get on this wall and we're going to skim it together and we're going to take a time. It's not a big wall, it was only about 5 meters square, but it helped me to understand where he was, but also it showed him exactly the steps behind it, when to hit it, you know, the things to look out for, clean edges, sharp edges, things like that. And I took my time with him, to a point where, you know, it was probably about 5, 6 o'clock at night. You know, a typical hit's probably about 3.5 hours, and I was in no rush. He was in no rush, and we just took a time. And do you know what? It was the most beautiful thing, and I don't mean that in a weird way. What I mean is, it was beautiful watching this lad who wasn't a plasterer, who wanted to learn how to plaster, jumping on a job with me in his own time because he wasn't being paid obviously out of hours. I said to him, like, you know, I want to get you better, and he was like, Shaun, do whatever you need to. I want to be better. Um, and I took the time with it. Took the time with him, and now he's off doing his own thing, doing his own bits of plastering, which, you know, I condemn. I recommend him for. I think he's a great guy, a great set of values, and, you know, just a really top fucking guy. He doesn't have no bullshit. He doesn't play games with people. He just wants to work and he wants to enjoy his life. And it sort of takes us back a little bit, you know. There's going to be things what I work on. There's going to be things that my guys will work on, or someone who I've pulled in for a couple of days who's going to make mistakes. They're going to make problems, you know, not for the client, but problems for the job. And it's down to me to highlight them issues with them and the client if it impacts the client, and basically put a plan together, which is what I've had to do before. I've had to put a plan in place, and I'm right. I know for a fact that, you know, we can make this work, and it can be worked on and it can be mastered. It's okay. And I think that if I was if I was to start all over again, you know, I'd have these rules set out, and I'm still debating whether to even do it for new clients. Basically, we have contracts. Everyone has contracts, and we've gone on jobs before, and clients have snagged that job before we've even finished for the day, and I'm there like, we haven't finished it yet. Oh, there's not enough nails and you know, oh, there's not enough screws in this headboard, and I'm like, well, we haven't finished yet. You know, there's another day tomorrow, or, you know, there's a day later on, and we'll always try and finish a task. But the task might mean that, you know, we're going to be spending 2 or 3 hours sorting it, and I'm like, it's 4 o'clock on a Thursday or a Friday. We've all got children. We've all got animals or dogs or whatever. You know, we've all got people and family that we need to devote our time to. So, you know, them sort of things are quite important. But back to topic, I only wanted to keep this nice and short. Every tradesman I know, including myself, we've all made mistakes, and it takes a big person to own up to that shit and say, yeah, I fucked up. Okay, you know, I took my eye off the ball for a second. Let me sort it. And acknowledging a good relationship between the tradesman and the client is the most important thing. And I will never, ever sit there and slate a client for being worried about something. But sometimes when they're snagging work before you finished, it's a bit, you know, it doesn't happen all that much. And, you know, when it does happen, it's just, again, just that communication, a bit of reassurance and accountability, and just being like, right, it's my shit, I'll own this. So there we are. Stay tuned for the next video, or the next podcast, shall I say. So this will be out on YouTube, and it will also be out on Spotify. If you've enjoyed what I've said, and you've enjoyed, and, you know, you've managed to gain something from this, whether you're a client or whether you're a tradesperson, leave a comment below, share the video, subscribe. There are more coming out. I quite enjoy doing them. It gets a lot of stuff off my chest, but also it helps a lot of people who are just starting out as well, or are going through the journey of a construction company. So let's do it. Let's make 2024 our year. Let's highlight a few issues. Let's fix a few things. Let's make people put faith back in tradesmen. I'll see you on the next one.